If I ask you a simple question, does reservation violate equality? Many people would immediately say yes. But the Constitution gives a very different answer. It says that real equality does not always mean treating everyone exactly the same. If some communities have suffered centuries of discrimination and exclusion, treating them exactly like everyone else may actually continue inequality. Hello everyone, my name is Rajni Jha. Welcome to Drishti IAS. In today's session, we will talk about reservation. Let's get started. First of all, why is this in news? So, a new online campaign on the issue of reservation is spreading rapidly. A group of people, a group called Reservation Hatao Andolan, has gained popularity. It has gained 5.6 million followers on Instagram within just a few days of its launch. First of all, what is the constitutional basis for reservation? Article 14, 15, and 16. They all talk about reservation. Article 14 gives the philosophical foundation for the concept of reservation. Let's see how. So, Article 14 has two dimensions in it, two important ideas: equality before law and equal protection of laws. I have specially made a video on this in depth on the Polity Simplified series. You can go and watch that video as well. So here there are two ideas: equality before law and equal protection of laws. Equality before law is a negative idea which stops state from acting arbitrarily, treating anyone unequally arbitrarily. And it talks about the fact that no one is above the law. Whereas equal protection of laws is a positive concept that allows state to make positive changes in order to bring equality in society. So it says that people who are differently placed should be treated differently. There should be a valid constitutional reason for it, but everybody does not have to be treated identically. So equality does not mean identical treatment. If two people are placed differently, they should be treated differently. I gave an example for this in that video, Polity Simplified video, where I told you that let's say there are two students, one is physically disabled and the other is not physically disabled. Now, do you think both of them should get exactly 3 hours, same rules, everything for writing the examination? No. We can make some extra accommodation for the student with physical disability. Maybe we can give him a little more time, because the idea is to give equal opportunity, not identical treatment, equal opportunity for both the students to express what they know. And in order for that to work, I need to make some special accommodation for the student with physical disability. Now, similarly, there are groups, communities, societies, sections of society which have been discriminated against or historically disadvantaged. So they are not on the same position as everybody else in the society. So if people are differently placed, they can be treated differently. And equality does not necessarily mean identical treatment. So this specially talks about substantive equality. And that's what Article 14, this second idea, equal protection of laws, is all about. This talks about the fact that two groups which are differently placed can be treated differently if there is a valid constitutional reason. And this is called the doctrine of reasonable classification. And for reasonable classification to happen, there are two tests, and both the tests should be there. Then only you can say there is reasonable classification. What are those two tests? So, for doctrine of reasonable classification, there are two tests, and both of them should be met. Both of them must be met in order for classification to be called constitutionally valid, which is first intelligible differentia, second rational nexus. Intelligible differentia simply means, you can remember it like intelligent difference. So you have to differentiate groups and there should be a logical basis, a reasonable basis for differentiating the groups. So the groups being classified must be distinguishable from each other. For example, in our example, I told you that there is one student who is not physically disabled and the other student is physically disabled. So physical disability is the basis for me to divide the group or to make a differentiation between these two students. So there has to be a classification, a distinguishable classification for different groups to be called that they are different. Second is rational nexus. This means that there should be a connection between the classification that I have made and the goal that I'm trying to achieve. So there has to be this classification must have a direct relationship with objective that I want to achieve. So for example, in the same example, the classification was physical disability, right? On this basis, I classified two students. My goal is to give equal opportunity to both the students to be able to express what they know, right? That is my goal. Now that I have distinguished them and I made a rule that the student with physical disability will get some more time, this ensures that the student is able to answer whatever he knows with special accommodation, right? So my goal is being met. My objective is being met based on that classification that I used. And based on that classification, I made a rule or a policy so that my goal is met. This is called rational nexus, that the classification must have a direct relationship with whatever goal or objective I'm trying to achieve. So, for example, in case of reservation, the classification or the distinguishable point is that there are some groups in society, some communities which have been historically disadvantaged or discriminated against. So, discrimination, that disadvantage, that is the classification, right? What is the goal I'm trying to achieve? The goal is that everybody should get equal opportunity to express, to grow, to progress in life. And for that, what I've done is I have made some affirmative actions. I've given them reservation. So this reservation will ensure that the groups that are left behind will also get opportunity to represent themselves, right? Will also get an opportunity to get good jobs, good education, and progress in life. And because they are all connected, now there is intelligible differentia, and now because there is a rational nexus, there is connection between the goal that I'm trying to achieve and the classification, the basis of classification. So these two tests are valid there, and that is why reservation is constitutionally valid. Now, whether this is right or wrong, that is a separate matter, but this is constitutionally valid, right? So Article 14 gives the basis for reservation, the constitutional validity of the reservation. The next is Article 15. Now, Article 15 is all about, what is Article 15 about? Article 15, in especially, it prohibits discrimination on the grounds of, only on the grounds of religion, race, caste, place of birth, and sex, right? But in Champakam Doirajan case, Article 15, Clause 4 was inserted, which allows special provision for socially and educationally backward class. Now, I'm not talking about just poverty. I'm not talking about their economic condition. There is two conditions, socially and educationally backward. They are underrepresented, socially also and educationally also. Then there was reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. All of this was done in Article 15, Part 4. This reservation was given in education because they were underrepresented. Then came Article 15, Clause 5, which enabled reservation, as I told you, in educational institution. Article 15, Clause 6 for EWS. You also have to tell me which Constitutional Amendment Act was it through which EWS reservation was made. So this reservation, this provided reservation in education. Similarly, when we move to Article 16, it talks about opportunity. Opportunity in public employment, that everybody should get opportunity in public employment, right? And for that, again, the basis is the same, that there are some groups that have been historically disadvantaged and discriminated against. So they should get opportunity, they should get a level playing field. Now, because they have been left behind, we have to bring them forward. And for that, reservation was given in public employment as well. So Article 16, as I told you, is about equality of opportunity in public employment. And Clause 4 allows reservation for backward classes that are not adequately represented in state services. They were backward and inadequately represented. They did not have enough representation, enough opportunity, and that is why reservation was made in public employment. So Article 14 provides the philosophy why it should be done. Article 15 gives reservation in education, and Article 16 gives reservation in public employment. Now, of course, I have not gone into detail in Article 14, 15, and 16 because that is not the topic here. We are just trying to understand why we have given reservation and where we have given reservation. Now comes the analytical part, or the most important part. Why was there a need for reservation? As I told you, there were certain groups which were historically disadvantaged or discriminated against. Why? Because of caste system. So India had structural inequality. Even now, India has structural inequality because of caste system. Because of caste system, they are excluded from education. There is occupational segregation. Earlier, we know for a fact that specific people from a specific caste were given a specific job with not so much dignity at all. So there was occupational segregation. There was untouchability. And even now, if you really go in rural areas, you'll figure out that even though untouchability is banned, it is still practiced in some form or the other, based on caste, because that's what we talk about, especially when we talk about banning of untouchability. or abolition of untouchability. There is landlessness, there is political exclusion, there is, as I told you, discrimination, social stigma. And because of so many structural inequalities which are there in society, caste system was designed to correct these historical underrepresentation. But what is the lived reality? Has it really made sure that inequality has disappeared? Has inequality truly disappeared? Now, NFHS National Family Health Survey 5 by economist Ashwini Deshpande and Rajesh Ramachandran show that SC/ST household continue to lag behind upper caste in education, occupation, and household wealth. Even though OBCs are doing well, but SC/STs are lagging behind by a mile, more than a mile. Similarly, national surveys also show there are lower years of schooling, higher dropout rates, lower participation in higher education in SCs and STs. And all this data especially shows that right now, even though reservation is there, they are not adequately represented. So a reservation is not giving them any unfair advantage. It is only making sure that they at least have access. Similarly, there is occupational segregation and representation. SC/ST communities, they still remain largely represented in casual labor, in agricultural work, in low paying occupation. In all the elite institutions, you will find there are mostly the upper caste people. In bureaucracy, there are upper caste people. We keep saying the bureaucracy is all about elites. Why is it all about elites? We can still see this segregation is there. We can still see this underrepresentation is there in high paying jobs or in elite institutions or high levels of bureaucracy. There is low representation of SCs and STs as compared to the population that they have, their population share. Now, there was a concept of creamy layer. Even when we talk about reservation, even when we talk about these specific communities or societies or castes which have been discriminated against, right now, not all of them are equally backward. We can see in every caste there are people who are well off. There are people who are not so well off who actually need reservation. And the fact of the matter is, people who actually need reservation are not getting the benefit of it. So there was a creamy layer concept that was introduced in Indra Sahni versus Union of India case, where Supreme Court introduced the concept of creamy layer, where it said that people in OBC category, there are some well-off people in OBC category, and they should not be getting. They are called creamy layer, and they should not be getting reservation. That is the concept of creamy layer. That the people who actually need it should be getting it. So people who are already advanced in society, people who are already doing well in society, they come in creamy layer concept, and creamy layer will not get reservation in OBCs. Now, if we talk about the fact that I just said, that is this benefit that we're talking about, that reservation is giving undue benefits, are these benefits reaching people who actually need it? And there's a committee called Justice Rohini Commission. This commission shows there's extreme concentration of reservation benefits. What does that mean? There are only a few people who actually don't need reservation are getting all the benefits of reservation. So commission found that only a small number of OBC communities have disproportionately large share of this reservation benefits, especially in central government jobs and admission to central education institutions. Out of more than 2,600 OBC communities in the central list, there are only few hundred. See, there are thousands total, but only few hundred communities have majority of jobs and admission. And I can assure you, most of these communities don't even need reservation. Then there is large number of communities that had either negligible representation or no representation at all. And these are the communities that actually require benefit of reservation. Similarly, in this commission, it was found out that, like I told you, many communities received no benefits. One of the commission's most significant findings was that hundreds of OBC communities had never obtained reservation benefits. Never. In central government employment or in admissions. Similarly, there is elite capture within OBCs. What does that mean? People who are already elite, who are already the creamy layer, they're finding loopholes and they are getting all the benefits. So commission observed relatively advanced OBC communities repeatedly secured government jobs. Once you have government job, after a generation, why do you need that? Reservation at least. You don't need that, right? But the same families keep getting reservation benefits. There are higher education seats that are taken up by them, professional opportunities that are taken by them, these elite communities within the OBCs. And this is called elite capture. This phenomenon is called elite capture. Similarly, there is a need for subcategorization. This was said, this was suggested. Why there is a need for subcategorization? So that every community within the same caste, because in the same caste there are separate communities. Within the same caste, separate communities are there. They all should be represented because there are, like I told you, there are hundreds of families who have never gotten benefit of reservation at all. So there was a need for subcategorization. This commission concluded that treating all OBC communities as one homogeneous category ignored the difference in level of backwardness. All of them do not have the same level of backwardness. They therefore recommended subdividing OBCs into separate categories and said that each of them should get 27% reservation. Rather than saying that this is OBC category and it will get 27% reservation, better idea would be divide them into separate communities and each should get 27% reservation, so that the benefits of reservation, they start reaching everyone that actually requires it also, and there is no elite capture. At least it is controlled. This would ensure that most backward groups receive a fairer share of opportunities. And this was in OBC. The same thing was observed in scheduled caste as well. In state of Punjab versus the Vinder Singh case, it was said that states may subclassify scheduled castes so that reservation reaches the most deprived group, provided that there is objective evidence that it is not reaching them, right? So there is subclassification, there is a need for subclassification in scheduled caste as well. And before we move to the last part of this session, I have prelims practice question and mains practice question for you. I'll ask you, we keep talking about the fact that reservation is attacking merit system, right? People who have merit are not able to get into the jobs or are not able to get seats. It is unfair for them. But because there has been historical disadvantage and discrimination towards such a large part of our society, do you think it should be removed? If yes, then why do you think it should be removed? And if you think that no, it should not be removed, then do you think it is actually reaching the people it should reach? The benefits are reaching the people it should reach? Because if it is not, then what's the point of having reservation in the first place? Right? Okay, so now we'll move on to the practice questions. First is prelims practice question. The doctrine of reasonable classification requires that first, the group receiving differential treatment must be distinguishable from the others. Second, the classification must have a rational relation with the objective sought to be achieved. And third, every classification made by state is constitutionally valid. You have to tell me which of these is right. Options are option A, 1 and 2 only, B, 2 and 3 only, C, 1 and 3 only, or D, 1, 2 and 3 only. And then I have a mains practice question for you, which is reservation in India is rooted in the constitutional vision of substantive equality rather than formal equality. This is what we discussed in Article 14. However, ensuring its benefits reach the most disadvantaged within reserved communities remains a major challenge. Discuss. This you have to answer. See, now, as I told you, I've told you earlier as well, you always start with an introduction, right? So you start with an introduction. How would you introduce? This entire question talks about reservation in India and the fact that we have constitutional basis for it in substantive equality, not in formal equality. Formal equality is treating everyone equally or identically. Substantive is like should be treated alike. That's what we discussed also. So in the introduction, you can write that reservation is not an exception to equality. Rather, it helps achieve substantive equality by addressing historical discrimination or disadvantage that have occurred to certain sections of society, right? That certain sections of society were subjected to. So something like that you can write in introduction. This will introduce the idea that you know what substantive equality is and how it is related to reservation. So you have addressed the first line itself in the introduction. Next, in the body, what would you write? First, in the first line, because it talks about constitutional vision, I will talk about, in the body, I will talk about the constitutional basis. Constitutional basis. In Article 14, it is there. We can write from there, right? Then Article 15, you can discuss. Article 16 here, you can discuss. And you can discuss what was the objective. The objective was to correct underrepresentation, right? Next, what else can you discuss here? Now, because the question talks about the fact that its benefits, ensuring that its benefits reach the most disadvantaged within reserved communities remains a major challenge. So you will write how this is a challenge. How reservation, first reservation is important. Why is it important? Because as we have seen in National Family Health Survey data that SC/STs are still lagging behind, right? In education also. So you'll write all of these, that this is why it is important. But because this question also talks about the challenge that it is not reaching the people it should reach, you will address that part also in the body itself. So the first part would be constitutional basis. Second part would be why is it necessary. Third part would be what is the challenge. So creamy layer or Justice Rohini Commission you can write here. State of Punjab versus Davinder Singh case you can write here. You can write that there is need for caste-wise socio-economic data updation so that we know which category in the specific caste also, whether it is reaching the benefits of reservation are reaching them or not. So you can write that in the body, and then you'll be writing conclusion where you can write that reservation is important for social justice, right? That's why it was also brought about. And constitutional challenge is still today, it remains today. And whether or not reservation should continue, that depends on the fact that whether the disadvantaged group have been getting any benefit or not. Because if they are not getting any benefit, then there is no point of having a reservation. So we should ensure that the disadvantaged group, they actually benefit from reservation. Something like that you'll write, so that it looks like you're not completely against it. It looks like you're not completely supporting the blind application or implementation of reservation. It should be a well-formed, well-rounded, balanced answer. But this was about writing an answer, and this is a question that I want to know from you. I want an answer from you. Do you really think that reservation should continue in today's scenario? First. Second, if you think it should not continue, then what about all the data that we have seen that there are communities, there are SCs, STs, which are still hugely underrepresented. There are problems of untouchability, so many problems in society. So if it should not continue, then what about them? Should we not think about them at all? What about social justice? India is a welfare society. What about that? And if you think this should continue, then how do we address the challenges which are there? Because people who actually need it are not getting it. Then how should we go about it? I actually want to know it from all of you. And that's it for today's session. I hope you really enjoyed the lecture. Until next time, I will be coming with more such topics. If you have any topic in your mind that you want me to explain, please ask in the comment section below. I would love to bring that topic too. And until next time, thank you so much for joining in, and take care.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.